North Korean leader Kim Jong-un wrapped up his 6-day Russia visit on Sunday and is returning home. Despite concerns and warnings from the international community, the leaders of Pyongyang and Moscow showed off their special bond. For more, we're joined by Bruce Klingner this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said the North and Russia have entered a new era in their relations and are enjoying what he called a golden age. How would you evaluate Kim Jong-un's Russia trip? How was it meaningful for the two leaders?
I think for the two leaders, it was successful. We've seen that the two countries have resumed stronger relations really since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Both countries are outcasts, are isolated, heavily isolated and sanctioned due to their own actions. But in this way, they're trying to gain military cooperation between both nations. There was no announcement from either leader, but the White House previously said that North Korea may provide significant amounts of artillery, which would enable Russia to continue its operations in Ukraine, and return may gain military technology from Russia for military reconnaissance satellites or nuclear-powered submarines. But we don't know any details yet of whether any of that took place.
Right. Now, not only was there a summit with Vladimir Putin, Kim also inspected Russia's nuclear-capable bombers, missiles, and a warship over the weekend. Does the tour mean he's not too happy about North Korea's naval forces? Maybe it's not strong enough yet?
We've seen a renewed focus by Kim Jong-un himself on North Korea's naval capabilities in recent months. Just in the past month, he's given a number of speeches. North Korea has unveiled a new missile submarine, which perhaps can fire nuclear-tipped missiles. He's also talked about nuclear weapons for the naval forces, and we've seen cruise missiles and submarine-launched ballistic missiles that have been test-fired recently. So there is a new emphasis on North Korea's naval forces to be another part of the nuclear forces. But he would likely want more military technology from Russia to continue to augment and refine North Korea's capabilities. And his visit was really a buffet line of military-related facilities in Russia that he may want to gain technology from.
Right, you mentioned the details of those military cooperation are yet to be disclosed, but how much of Russia's space technology will North Korea actually get? Will the North get it immediately?
Well, North Korea would likely want additional Russian technology. Pyongyang has had two failed launches, or attempted launches of its military reconnaissance satellite. That said, the missile programs, the satellite reconnaissance satellites so far have been largely indigenous, though gaining some technology from various sources. But if he were to be able to get Russian technology, that might enable him to make great leaps and bounds in the greater capabilities for not only a military reconnaissance satellite, but also his missiles.
Right. The trip also comes timely considering that the North is aiming to attempt to launch its spy satellite for the third time next month.
Exactly. So we'll see how that goes. In the past, under his father, Kim Jong-il, North Korea would usually have very long time after a failed launch in order to make sure that they got the next one right. And there were reports that scientists were punished. Under Kim Jong-un, he's much more willing to accept failure as the cost of success, in that there will be a second or third or more attempted launches even after a failure. In 2017, we saw 3 failed launches of an intermediate range ballistic missile, and then followed by 3 more successful launches that year.
Right. And in an interview over the weekend, South Korean leader President Yoon Suk-yeol, he said the military cooperation between North Korea and Moscow is illegal and unjust, and the international community will unite more tightly against it. Now, does that mean that there'll be more sanctions on the regime in Moscow? What other options other than sanctions are there?
Well, under existing UN resolutions, the military cooperation in the sense of transfer of military technology or weapons is prohibited, both going from North Korea to the outside world and then in reverse. So any kind of military technology or weapons or equipment provided one way or the other, including the artillery ammunition from North Korea to Russia, is a violation of numerous resolutions. That said, Moscow and Beijing would likely block any additional new resolutions or new sanctions. However, there's a lot of authority under existing UN resolutions as well as international and U.S. law that could enable additional sanctions against individual entities of not only North Korea and Russia, but Chinese banks and businesses that have been facilitating North Korea's prohibited nuclear and missile program. So perhaps not additional authorities, but additional actions under existing authorities.
Sure. In the meantime, China appears to be not too enthusiastic about this Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin summit, considering they haven't really reported much on that summit, right? Now, but with Hangzhou Asian Games taking place soon, how likely is it that Kim Jong-un will visit China and sit down for talks with Xi Jinping?
Well, it's really a matter of when. I think it's very likely that there will be another North Korea-China summit, but perhaps not in the immediate future. North Korea has a history of playing China and Russia, or previously the Soviet Union, off against each other. Now he seems to be focusing more on Russia to see what benefits he can get, military, economic, et cetera, from Russia. So I think the emphasis for a while will be with Russia, but eventually Kim will come back to China because China is responsible for over 90% of North Korea's foreign trade. So I think in the near term, the emphasis will be on Russia, but then it will have to come back to China for economic reasons.
Sure. Let's see how that trio manages their partnership. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a good evening.
Well, thank you for having me.